If you're struggling to write scenes that flow smoothly, stick around because today I've got some practical advice that will help you out. What's up, guys? My name's Brandon McNulty. I'm a writer, I'm the author of Bad Parts, and welcome to my writing channel. Today we're going to be continuing the discussion on how to write better scenes, scenes that are well structured, and scenes that work. If you missed last week's video, I'll link it up here. What I talked about was the two different types of scenes, goal-oriented scenes and reaction scenes, and how they work and how they each have three structural points to them. Today I'm going to be focusing more on the nitty-gritty of scenes, like how they work from paragraph to paragraph. All the information I'm going to be teaching you today is from a book called Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. There's also a website called advancedfictionwriting.com that has a great article on this. I will link it in the description below, as well as a link to this particular book. But what I'm going to be talking about today is how you get your paragraphs to work within a scene. Now, what Swain suggests in his book Techniques of the Selling Writer is that all scenes can be broken down into what he calls motivation reaction units, which sounds like a load of gibberish, and it's really confusing terminology, so we're just going to throw that out the window. I'm going to replace it by saying that we're going to call it event and reaction patterns. I think that's the easiest way to explain it, because basically what he's suggesting is that each scene is a back and forth between events and reactions. Event, reaction, event, reaction. And they follow this pattern of back and forth. Now, when you're writing a scene, you need to be aware that an event is something that is external, it's objective, it's something that if we were filming a movie, we would be able to see it because it takes place in reality. It's something that can be seen. Now, when we're talking about reactions, we're talking about what your main point of view character, how they react to those specific events. So events, think of it, they're external, they're out there in the world. Reactions are internal, they're inside your character's head. Now, when we talk about scene reactions, they are actually made up of three specific components. The first one is feeling, then you have reflex, and then finally you have rational action and speech. And they always go in that order. You don't necessarily have to have all three of them, but if you are including all three or you're including two, they have to follow that order. And it's very important because when we talk about feeling is something like, let's say, for instance, the event leading up to the reaction, the event is that you get punched in the face. The first thing you would describe is the feeling of getting punched in the face, like how it feels if your nose is snapped, or maybe the feeling of the heat rushing to the site of the impact, whatever it is, however you would describe it. After that, you would focus on the reflex, and this is the instinctual thing that happens after the event. Like, before you can even think about what to do next, what instantly happens? Do you jump out of the way? Do you lift your hands to protect from the next blow? Something like that. Then, once you worked your way through the feeling, through the reflex, then you worry about rational action and speech. You might have your character thinking about a solution to the problem. Oh man, I just got punched in the face. I've never been punched in the face before. What do I do? Well, I saw, this technique in a movie once. Maybe I'll try this out. Or maybe I learned something in my karate class 20 years ago. Maybe I'll see if that still works. Something like that. How do they respond? Do they come up with a different action, or do they even come up with speech? Maybe they call for help, whatever it is. And then, of course, you have to remember this is an event reaction pattern. So just because you do an event and a reaction, that doesn't mean you're done. The important thing is that you have that pattern, that back and forth between the event and the reaction, then another event and another reaction, and so on and so on. That's how you make your scenes work. That's how you make them flow. Now I want to give you an example that illustrates how the event and reaction pattern can work. And I'm going to take it from the opening chapter of one of my favorite novels, Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan. And Altered Carbon, of course, got made into a Netflix series a couple of years ago, so you probably heard of it, or maybe you've even seen it. But in this opening chapter, the main character is fending against a group of commandos who have just burst into his apartment. So he's trying to defend himself from these people. Now, pay attention to how the events and reactions play out in this scene. So in this scene, we have the main character defending against a violent home invasion, and we're going to pick it up in the middle of the scene where there's some action going on. And I'm going to start with a paragraph that's an event, which means that it's external. We can see with the camera. So here it goes. I was going for a fourth or fifth blow when something kicked me between the shoulder blades and splinters jumped magically out of the table leg in front of me. I felt the sting as two of them found homes in my face. Now that's an event, that's external, we can see everything there. Pay attention to the next paragraph, which is a reaction that includes all three steps. For some reason, the rage puddled abruptly out of me. I let go of the commando's head almost gently and was lifting one puzzled hand to the pain of the splinters in my cheek when I realized I had been shot and that the bullet must have torn all the way through my chest and into the table leg. I looked down, dumbfounded, and saw the dark red stain inking its way out over my shirt. No doubt about it, an exit hole big enough to take a golf ball. Now, the first part of this reaction is the feel, the rage puddling abruptly out of him, and that's something he feels. Notice that it's followed up with a reflex. He lets go of the commando's head almost gently and lifts a puzzled hand to the pain of the splinters in his cheek. A puzzled hand is not a hand that is guided by thought or strategy. It's guided by reflex, so keep that in mind. And then after that, when he says, "when I realized," this is where he starts thinking. He goes toward that rational action in speech. Then the action he eventually takes is he looks down dumbfounded, he sees the stains, and so on and so on. One thing I want to point out, the last sentence in this paragraph, an exit hole big enough to take a golf ball, that is an event in this case because it's something we can externally see, we can see it on camera, and it leads into the next paragraph, which I'm going to read for you, which is a reaction paragraph. So here's the next one. With the realization came the pain. It felt as if someone had run a steel wool pipe cleaner briskly through my chest cavity. Almost thoughtfully, I reached up, found the hole, and plugged it with my two middle fingers. The fingertips scraped over the roughness of torn bone in the wound, and I felt something membranous throb against one of them. The bullet had missed my heart. I grunted and attempted to rise, but the grunt turned into a cough, and I tasted blood on my tongue. So that paragraph is a reaction from start to finish. We get it first of all with the feel of the pain. It felt as if someone had run a steel wool pipe cleaner briskly through my chest cavity. That's a feel. It's followed up with a reflex. Almost thoughtfully, I reached up. Those words, almost thoughtfully, that tips you off to the fact that it's a reflex because he's not thinking about it. He's just acting. He's acting as a reflex. And then later on, we get to see him thinking about it before finally he takes action. He grunts and attempts to rise. That's his rational action in speech. So that opening chapter of Altered Carbon is a great example of a scene that goes back and forth between event and reaction, and so on. And most great novels will do this. So as you're reading, whatever you're reading this week and beyond, pay attention for things like that. See how your favorite authors pull it off and keep it in mind. Ask yourself, okay, well, an event just happened. How did they react? Did he go through the stages? And so on and so on. Now, when you're doing this in your own work, remember everything I taught you today. This is all, paragraph level stuff, how you go back and forth, event, reaction. Don't forget about scene structure, everything I taught you last week in the video on the 2 different types of scenes. You got to keep those in mind as well. A structured scene is a great one, and if you have that back and forth within a structured scene, it's going to be even better. So these 2 videos, hopefully they'll help you out. They'll help you write better scenes that keep your readers engaged. Question of the day, how well do your most recent scenes follow the event and reaction pattern? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for me. Share this video with a friend if you don't mind. Pick up a copy of Bad Parts if you haven't already. And as always, remember to keep on writing.